In this problem, we're given the rectangular coordinates of a point, and we're asked to find two different pairs of polar coordinates. So let's begin by drawing where this point is on the rectangular coordinate system. So when we have x and y axis, then if we go over -2 in the x direction and down -2 in the y direction, there's our point. To define the polar coordinates of this point, we need to define the angle from the polar axis. If we put the polar axis on the x-axis, then the angle we're looking for is this angle right here, which we can see the angle will be 5 pi over 4. And then we also need the r, which is the distance from the pole, or the origin, to our point -2, -2. And here, r can be found by taking the square root of the x coordinate squared, -2 squared, plus the y coordinate squared. So we get the square root of 8, or 2 radical 2. So one way to write this point in polar coordinates is to call it the point 2 radical 2, 2 times radical 2, comma, 5 pi over 4. So the angle is 5 pi over 4 from the polar axis, and then we're a distance of 2 radical 2 away from the pole. Alternatively, another way we could do this is if we went around in one complete circulation and then another pi over 4, that would give us a second point in polar coordinates. So if we add 2 pi to 5 pi over 4, so we get 9 pi over 4, that would also be a valid polar coordinate expression for the point -2, -2. Or if we wanted to use a negative radius, we could think of that same point as being an angle of pi over 4 up to here, and then a radius of negative radical 2 over 2. So there's a third possible way to write -2, -2 in polar coordinates.